Hey everyone, welcome to the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Podcast. I'm Pat Fitzmaurice, and I'm going to be doing the driving today because my podcast partner Scott Bogman isn't here. Bogman is still in Seattle where he was attending MLB's All-Star festivities, but who needs Bogman? I've brought in a special guest co-host this week. It's Dave Heilman of Dynasty Dorks and other fantasy sports and sports gambling outlets. You can find him on Twitter at Dynasty Dorks. Hello, Dave. Thanks for joining me today. How's the summer treating you so far?
It's going fast. Just got back from the Cincinnati Scott Fishbowl live draft. So that was a lot of fun. And you can tell by the voice, it was a lot of fun.
Nice, man. Did you get some Cincinnati-style chili while you were there?
We did. It was a great event. John Bosch, shout out. He did a great job.
Outstanding, man. So our subject today is going to be breakout candidates for 2023. So let's dive right in with some breakout candidates at the all-important quarterback position. Dave, hit me with your first QB breakout candidate.
Yeah, it's Desmond Ridder. And so Desmond Ridder, there was questions whether or not he would be the starter if they would invest in a quarterback during the draft, and they did not. And so what they did was they added another weapon to the offense. And I know there's some concern. They've used top 10 picks on offensive weapons and not used them correctly in the past. But when Marcus Mariota is your quarterback, you're kind of limited to the cards that you have in your hand. And so Desmond Ridder came on last year. He was a much more accurate passer. He was very efficient. And you look at the rushing upside that he brings. I look at Ryan Tannehill when he was with Arthur Smith. This guy had 2,180 yards of rushing in college. He had 28 rushing touchdowns in college. That's huge for fantasy football. And then he threw 30 passing touchdowns his senior year. So I think this guy is going under the radar a little bit, and you can get him very cheap in your super flex drafts. He's basically free in one quarterback drafts, and he's got that rushing upside that could break him out.
Yeah, I like that call. And, I'm high on Drake London, and part of the reason I'm high on Drake London is because his efficiency really spiked after the Falcons made the switch from Mariota to Ridder last year. I think London averaged like 3 yards per route run with Ridder at the end of the season, and the guy can run like 4.5 speed. He is a legit running threat. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that Falcons offense looks this year. So mine is Trey Lance, and man, I've just, been beating this drum on this podcast for a long time. So, regular listeners are probably going to be sick of hearing about it by now, but this guy is so outrageously cheap for a quarterback who was the third overall pick of the 2021 draft and could potentially be handed the keys to a 49ers offense that's just laden with skill position talent. In 2021, the plan was always to bring along Lance slowly because he was 21 years old and had essentially played 1 year at North Dakota State where he was facing lesser competition. But Lance broke the index finger on his throwing hand in 2021. That was in the preseason. He said the injury forced him to change his throwing mechanics. He couldn't grip the ball properly. Made 2 starts as a rookie when Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt, and those 2 starts were neither great nor disastrous. Then Lance was going to get his chance last year, played 1 game against the Bears in a rainstorm, then broke his ankle in his second start. But when Jimmy Garoppolo also got hurt last year, 7th-round pick Brock Purdy came in, played well, guided the 49ers to a pair of playoff wins. So now Lance is going to have to vault past Purdy on the depth chart and past free agent signee Sam Darnold to win back the job. But I think he's going to get his shot because of the substantial investment the 49ers made in him. If he doesn't, and if the 49ers are putting their thumbs on the scale for Brock Purdy, who, by the way, played a lot of really bad defenses last year that I think made him look better than he actually might be, if that's the case, then look, you might have to sit on him a year and not get anything, but I think he would get his chance with someone in 2024. We know Lance has the sort of rushing ability that moves the needle for fantasy. He averaged 58 rushing yards in his first 3 NFL starts, then broke his ankle in the 4th on a designed run for Trey Lance. So Lance has arm talent too, and we saw video in OTAs. It looked like he cleaned up some of the mechanics that might have gone awry with that broken index finger. So I'm bullish here, and the price has plummeted. Are you with me on Lance? Dave? Or, I mean, he is a polarizing guy in Dynasty. I won't hate you if you're not with me here.
Yeah, he's really tough. So with any player, it just comes down to the price. And if you can possibly hedge your bets and get Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, you could end up with two quarterbacks on different teams in 2024. There's nothing saying they couldn't move on from Brock Purdy if they move to Trey Lance. But yeah, I think I was surprised Trey Lance didn't get traded this offseason, but Brock Purdy's injury really made things difficult. But yeah, we'll see how this class comes next year. But Trey Lance will be on the last year of his rookie contract minus the 5th-year option, and they'll be forced to make a decision on him soon.
Yeah. All right, you got another quarterback breakout candidate for me?
Yeah, it's Sam Howell. And so, again, looking at these second-year quarterbacks that I honestly thought might be replaced in the draft by, Will Levis or Hendon Hooker, and they weren't. And so I know Jacoby Brissett is there, and I think that that's baked into his cost. You're not having to pay a whole lot for Sam Howell, but Sam Howell is another player that brings rushing upside. You look at his last season at North Carolina, 828 yards and 11 touchdowns. That's huge. I'm sure people that play college fantasy football loved it. And then you looked at his one start. I'm not going to try to extrapolate one start and say this is what he's projected to do, but 5 carries, 35 yards in his one start against the Dallas Cowboys last year. So you're looking at a guy that's got a great set of weapons. He's got a pretty bad defense. They're probably going to be playing from behind quite a bit. And you got the rushing upside, and he's going as QB 28, 29 right now. I'm okay with grabbing him, especially if he's my third quarterback, and seeing what happens here. I'm excited to see what this Eric Bieniemy offense looks like. They got a good running game, and they have 3 receivers. Jahan Dotson had 7 touchdowns last year. Curtis Samuel, he's looked really good last year coming off of injury, and of course Terry McLaurin. I got Logan Thomas coming back, but I'm really focused on those receivers. So I think he's set up for success with those weapons.
He's really intriguing, and granted, the 2021 rookie QB class was not a good one, but Howell had my favorite prospect profile. I mean, he hit the ground running as a freshman at North Carolina in the ACC, a Power 5 conference, and 2 really good seasons right off the bat. A little bit of either plateauing or slippage in year 3 after he lost Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, De'Ami Brown, Daz Newsome. Tell me, Dave, do you prefer straight up Desmond Ridder or Sam Howell?
Oof. I will take Desmond Ridder over Sam Howell. I do think they're a better team. And something I didn't mention earlier was just how bad that division is. You're looking at, Tampa Bay could be one of the worst teams in the league. You have Carolina. They were up there as one of the worst teams in the league last year. And then you have the Saints. We'll see what they look like with Derek Carr. But I'm going to go with Desmond Ridder. And I love the Bijan Robinson addition. Take a whole lot of pressure off of him with having a good running game. That was a good running game last year because that offensive line is really good. And they turned Tyler Algier and other running backs into stars. And you have Cordell Patterson is there as well.
Yeah, play action could be really effective with that offense. And man, I have Howell ranked 1 spot ahead of Ridder, but I'm really torn on that. As I mentioned, I thought Howell had the best prospect profile in that class, but draft capital didn't really agree with Howell being, I think, the first pick of the 5th round and Ridder going in the 3rd. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how those two guys do this year. Are there any rookie quarterbacks you think could pop right away and have rookie breakouts, Dave?
Yeah, I think the only one is Anthony Richardson. I know it's kind of low-hanging fruit, but Marcus Grant said it tastes the same. You don't have to work so hard for it. And so I think the other the other situations like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, really tough situations. Will Levis is going to have something happen to Ryan Tannehill. I think Anthony Richardson's the only one that I think has some potential for breakout this year.
Yeah. So today's show is all about 2023 potential breakout players. So you're going to hear about some of my favorite targets in dynasty leagues, but If you want to see some of the other guys I'm high on, check out an article on my favorite Dynasty startup targets by visiting fantasypros.com/startup. And by the way, if you enjoy the Fantasy Pros Dynasty podcast and want to interact directly with me and my usual co-host Scott Bogman, join us for our weekly Discord chat every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, where we will be answering questions each week for premium subscribers. It is a stages event, so not only can you ask us questions with the chat function, you can come up on stage and talk to Bogman and I directly. But again, the weekly Dynasty chat with Pat Fitzmaurice and Scott Bogman is a premium service. It's only available to premium subscribers. So be sure to subscribe, get access to all our great tools and content, and come hang out with me and Bogman. All right, on to running backs, Dave. Give me your first breakout candidate.
It's Alexander Mattison. And I know we've been waiting a long time. He's been like that premier handcuff that everyone gets. If you got Dalvin Cook, you always just had to go around and double up with Alexander Mattison. But when Dalvin Cook was out, they turned to Mattison. This offseason, he signed a pretty good contract for running backs these days, and it's a 2-year deal, and it had all the writing on the wall that Dalvin Cook would be out. He had 77% of the carries when Dalvin Cook was out. He has third-round draft capital. When in the 6 games that Dalvin Cook was out, Alexander Mattison has stood in there as a solid fantasy option, 18.13 points per game in .5, 20 points per game in PPR, and he's had 4.5 targets. That's a 7th. His target share would rank 7th amongst running backs. So Alexander Mattison, and there are some haters out there that are keeping the price in check, which is great because I like Mattison. Can I say 100% confidence that he's going to get a Dalvin Cook type of workload? I don't know. But with the price it's at, I think he's a solid RB2 with RB1 upside.
Yeah, it's really unknowable how the Vikings are going to operate that backfield with Dalvin Cook gone, whether Mattison is going to be, a workhorse, sort of the head of a committee, or just if it's going to be like a full-blown committee where, it kills the value of everyone. But here's some pressure, Dave. If you had to make a pick here, who would you bet out of the guys behind him? Ty Chandler, rookie Dwayne McBride, Kene Nwangwu. Who do you think is going to be the number 2 in terms of fantasy value this year?
Yeah, I was going through this, and I would probably just take the cheapest guy in ADP if I were to get them on my team because it is difficult. Ty Chandler has some speed, but I'll go Nwangwu. I like the size. As well as the quickness, his ability to catch out of the backfield. Dwayne McBride, I like him, but I was really disappointed in the draft capital. He hasn't shown us that he can catch the ball. So even if he does get some playing time, is he going to get valuable touches in the passing game or things like that? So I'll take him.
Yeah, definite passing game limitations for McBride, but potentially goal line usage. I like Chandler. I guess Chandler would be my pick just because I think he has a chance to be their designated passing down guy. But man, Nwangwu, that guy gets the ball. He looks like he has been shot out of a cannon. Like he is fun to watch. Maybe he's never anything but a kick returner primarily. But man, I'd love to see that guy get a chance to show his stuff in the backfield.
His size is what stands out because you see how fast he is. You hear about how fast he is, and then you're like, wait a minute, this guy's 6 foot, 215 pounds.
Right.
He's a big guy for how fast he is. And yeah, he is absolutely explosive.
Yeah. So mine is Cam Akers. And, this is a guy who I think could definitely jump up a tier or two in 2023. He led the NFL in rushing over the final 6 weeks of the 2022 regular season and ranked running back 4.5 point PPR scoring over that stretch. More than 100 rushing yards in each of his last 3 games. Akers doesn't have a lot of competition in the Rams backfield. I mean, I know some people see Zach Evans being this existential threat to Cam Akers' primacy in that backfield, but Evans was a late 6th round pick. So the hit rate for late 6th rounders, not great. And you've got Kyren Williams there. He's small and slow. I don't see him as being much of a threat. And if we see Rams head coach Sean McVay lean on Akers the way he used to lean on Todd Gurley, I mean, we could really be cooking with gas here with Akers, who's now 2 years removed from that devastating Achilles injury he sustained in his rookie year. So going into his age 24 season, still time for Akers to pop. I'm optimistic that this is going to be his breakout year. All right, who's next for you, Dave?
It's Mr. J.K. Dobbins. And so throughout his career, he's been a solid back, but health has definitely been, a concern. 14 points per game when he gets 10 plus touches. As far as true yards per carry, before the ACL, he was first. Breakaway percentage, first. Third in yards per touch. Fifth in elusiveness, seventh in fantasy points per touch. This is before the ACL. So after the ACL, how does he look? Second in elusiveness, third in breakaway percentage, fourth in true yards per carry, ninth in yards per touch. And we know that when he came back, you saw the big run and he had to run out of bounds, had a little hitch in his giddy up. He looked a lot better through the last 4 games of the season. And you saw he was one of the best running backs in the league those last 4 weeks. That was really good as far as seeing him be healthy. And that's the most important thing. So he goes into this year healthy. And I think the offensive, with Todd Monken being there, it's going to be a more fast-paced offense, more attempts, more opportunities, and more goal line work for Dobbins.
Yeah, I haven't been ready to shove all the chips in on J.K. Dobbins. I think I might have him on one of my dynasty leagues. But man, you said it. When he came back initially, and I don't think it was in week 1. I don't think he was ready till week 2 or week 3 last year. But yeah, he was still kind of limping, and it's oh no, is this guy ruined forever? But then he went in and had that cleanup surgery. And when he came back from that, after missing 6 weeks, it looked like the old J.K. Dobbins that we saw and were so impressed by at Ohio State. So hopefully he is back to being that guy. And Lamar's back. Could be wheels up for J.K. Dobbins in 2023. So I'll stay in the AFC North and go with a guy who's a little further under the radar, Jerome Ford. And so with the Browns seemingly disinterested in bringing back the unsigned Kareem Hunt, Ford is expected to be Nick Chubb's primary backup. Not a lot of competition for him there. And we know Chubb has had some significant knee injuries in the past. Ford ran for 1,300 yards and 20 touchdowns in his final year at the University of Cincinnati. Though he doesn't have quite the power Nick Chubb has, Ford's a pretty powerful dude. He's 210 pounds, and he will absolutely run through arm tackles. He's got a physical style. This is a potentially valuable asset, and he is very cheap in dynasty formats right now. All right, Dave, who's next for you?
Actually, that's I'm going to the receivers.
Oh, is it? Were we going to talk about Rachaad White at all, or?
My mistake. I was going to talk about Rachaad White.
Okay, yeah, let's do that because he's kind of one of my guys too. I loved his skill set last year.
Yeah, no, my apologies. Yeah, Rachaad White is, you talk about not having any competition in the backfield. There's nobody. I'm going to get Chase Edmonds, Keyshawn Vaughn, and Sean Tucker. As much as I was excited about Sean Tucker, the draft capital, he didn't get drafted at all. And Rachaad White, he is another guy that profiles as a pass catcher. And so you're looking at somebody that could have a 3-down skill set. They really turned to him after the bye week last week and gave him the keys. And, the offensive line had some shuffling around that needed to be done last year. I think they lean a little bit on Rachaad White with the quarterback situation. And he's someone that could really get a large share of the workload here.
Yeah, just the fact that he was able to have such a big role last year in that offense when Tom Brady was running it, because it was pretty important with Tom Brady at quarterback, completely immobile at age 58 or whatever he was last year, that they had a guy who could protect him and be a viable dump-off target because, Brady did not like holding onto the ball, and he would dump it off in a heartbeat if he was under duress. So, even though Leonard Fournette had more targets and more catches, White was a pretty prolific pass catcher in year 1. And, that's just a skill that's going to age well in Dynasty. So he's going to be valuable for a long time, even if he does have competition, even if the Buccaneers were to be the, surprise signers of Dalvin Cook, or if they brought in Zeke Elliott or re-signed Fournette, like I still think White would be a pretty viable fantasy back this year, and long term he's just going to hold his value because of that mature skill set. Since we did talk about potential breakouts for rookie quarterbacks, I'll ask you the same thing about the running backs, Dave, and we'll skip past Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, top 12 picks. I think everyone expects big things from them in year one. Any of the rookies you think could maybe surprise us? I know, like, none of these guys are walking right into workhorse roles, besides Bijan, and Gibbs will have a pretty substantial role too. But is there anyone you really like and think could be an under the radar gem in this rookie class?
It is tough because all of them, they appear to be buried on the depth chart, and a lot of them behind some really good backs. So Kendre Miller is interesting with the Alvin Kamara suspension possible. We would think Jamal Williams would probably step in, but Kendre Miller could get some work. But Rashawn Johnson, I think it could be an open competition there. You look at Khalil Herbert he's currently the back. And then you have Deonta Foreman, who they brought over on a 1-year deal. Herbert would be a free agent in 2 seasons, but they used 4th-round draft capital on Rashawn Johnson, and I think that does speak volumes in how they think about him. I was at the Combine, and there was a lot of talk about teams viewing him as a number 1, and he does have, even though he's huge, he's 6'2", 225, 230 pounds, he still has a pass-catching skill set. I'll never forget the play. Texas actually put Bijan Robinson on one sideline and put Roschon Johnson on the other sideline, and it was just flexing the talent they had at the running back position. So I'll give Rashawn Johnson my potential sleeper rookie breakout.
Yeah, he, Bijan's backup, but he was very well regarded in Austin. And, he's going to work his way into the mix, I think, in Chicago right away. My guy's Devon Achane. I think listeners of this show know how I feel about Achane. Like, yes, he's small, and I know a lot of people turn their noses up at sub 200-pound running backs. But, man, I think he can be the next Warrick Dunn. Like, this dude's obviously blazing speed, 4.32 at the Combine, but remarkable contact balance for a smaller guy. And he averaged 23.2 touches a game for Texas A&M last year. So really kind of crossing my fingers that the Dolphins do not sign Dalvin Cook. But even if they do, I'm high on Achane and Dynasty. I think he's got a bright future. All right, before I move on with the show, I want to announce the winner of the autographed Deontay Johnson Pittsburgh Steelers jersey, courtesy of bettingpros.com. It's Hunter Meeker. Hunter, please get in touch with our customer support agents at mailbag@fantasypros.com with your mailing address and proof of your subscription to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, and we will get that jersey shipped out to you ASAP. Again, the winner is Hunter Meeker. Congratulations, Hunter. Our next giveaway is for a free Ultimate Custom Championship belt from our friends at Trophy Smack. To win, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, comment on this video, and that's it. And if you love our content, please give us a like and click that bell to get notified each time a new video drops. All right, on to the critical wide receiver position, Dave. I don't know about you, but I always like to build through the wide receiver position in Dynasty. Who's your first breakout candidate for 2023?
Yeah, and this guy's probably been on everybody's breakout list for 3 years. But it's Jerry Jeudy, and in Sean Payton, I trust. Sean Payton has had 1,000-yard receivers. Lance Moore was a 1,000-yard receiver. Brandon Cooks did it twice. Michael Thomas 4 times. Jimmy Graham twice. You have Marcus Colston 6 times. This guy turned Devery Henderson into a fantasy football star. Sean Payton knows what he's doing. He's building the offensive line, so he has the foundation for his house. And this guy, in 11 out of his 15 seasons, had a top 5 offense. This guy's also had a top 1 offense. And this is a team that every single thing that you could have gone bad last year did. And so Jerry Jeudy last year at the end of the season really started to develop some chemistry with Russ. It was addition by subtraction with Hackett being out of there. He was 15.5 points per game at the end of the season last year, which is pretty good. And if he can keep that up, I think he's going to be the number one in that offense. And, as far as Jerry Jeudy, we know he's got the first round draft capital. We know he's got the talent. That's never been the question. It's just always been really bad quarterback play. Drew Lock spraying the ball everywhere or QB injuries.
Yeah, we didn't get quite the full Jerry Jeudy breakout last year, but we got a little taste of it for sure. The hors d'oeuvre, the amuse-bouche. And I hope we get the main entree this year because he is exciting and he's got two ways to win. The guy's a really good route runner and he's terrific after the catch. So I'm enthusiastic about him. And like you said, man, the Sean Payton arrival. And thanks for the trip down memory lane, by the way, with Lance Moore and Devery Henderson. That was fun to remember those guys for fantasy. My guy is Jahan Dotson, and in 12 games last year, 7 touchdowns and 5 top 20 scoring weeks at the wide receiver position. I mean, he's really fast, 4 speed and plays to it. Good route runner, great after the catch, and like Tyreek Hill for a smaller receiver, he is punching above his weight in contested catch situations. He will go up and get it. Yes, Terry McLaurin is there too, and the unproven Sam Howell at quarterback, but while the ecosystem might not allow for a wide receiver one season this year, I do think he has that in his range of outcomes. Maybe not this year, but 2024 and beyond. I'm excited about Dotson's career trajectory, and I do think, there are going to be multiple wide receiver one seasons ahead of him. All right, who's next for you, Dave?
Mr. Elijah Moore. And so Elijah Moore had a little bit of a mini breakout his rookie season. He had a 6-week span where he had 6 touchdowns in 6 weeks, 459 yards. Good receivers are able to do that. If you're not a good receiver, you're not going to be able to just miraculously do that in the NFL. And he gets a QB upgrade and gets a new town. He needed a new change of scenery last year. They asked him, hey, what about your chemistry with Zach Wilson? He was like, I don't get the ball. So what do you want me to do? I know this guy struggles a little bit with the run blocking, and part of that caused some tension with coaching staff. But the Cleveland Browns they invested a high pick. They could have drafted a lot of these rookie receivers in the middle, I think it was pick 42, in the middle of the second round, and they decided, I want Elijah Moore instead. And so that tells me there's confidence in him. He goes in and immediately starts at their slot receiver position, and I'm excited for Elijah Moore this year. And I just can't believe that his price tag, people are still sour on him, and so he's super cheap.
Yeah, I mean, that little taste we got from him in 2021, which he was basically doing with Mike White mostly as his quarterback at the time. There might have been some other quarterbacks in the mix during that great stretch for him. I can't remember, but man, if we get something close to the version of Deshaun Watson that we saw when he was in Houston this year, I mean, there is a high ceiling for Elijah Moore, and he's pretty cheap in Dynasty right now, Dave. Cheaper than he should be, without question. All right, I'm going to go to Treylon Burks. And yes, my enthusiasm would be somewhat diminished if the Titans do sign DeAndre Hopkins, as has been rumored. But look, even if they sign DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, it's still only an average, still maybe a below average wide receiver room. I mean, they just don't have much at all on the roster. It's right now it's Treylon Burks, it's Kyle Phillips, it's Nick Westbrook-Akine. It is sparse. So, Burks, we didn't get to see much of him last year as a rookie. 11 regular season games and 393 snaps. Had some interesting flashes, but the sample size was really just too small for us to draw any firm conclusions here. But we do know that Burks was a big-time producer at the University of Arkansas when he was there, that he is 6'2" and 224 pounds. So this guy has, a real man's body here, and he is hard to tackle when he's got the ball in his hands. So we also know the Titans spent mid-first round draft capital on him, so he's going to get every opportunity to succeed. How do you feel about Burks, Dave? He's another guy, I don't know, I feel like some people are still a little bit lukewarm on him. Other people are just, they're doing depth chart scouting and seeing that there's not much else there, and that's why they're high on him. That's really not the sole reason I'm high on him. I mean, I like the fact that he has a clear path to targets, but I don't know. How do you feel about the player generally?
Yeah, I like the player. I think he's he led the entire class in yards after catch coming in, and that's really his specialty. And he just didn't really have. He didn't have an ideal rookie season. We had the asthma and things that really hampered his development in the early season. And then he had that injury. And so it really threw him off. But he's the number one on his team. And so, again, it comes down to the price. My only concern with him is that a lot of people are on him. And so I did a dynasty price check. If you look up dynasty price check Treylon Burks on Twitter, you're going to see it. And I was like, wow, you can get Jeudy plus. You can get Calvin Ridley plus for Treylon Burks. He is an expensive player, and that would be my only concern. But I do like the player, and if you have him on your roster, I'm not selling him for cheap because I do think, especially when they get more around this team, and he's already the number one on the team. Great draft capital. They've already invested highly in him, and sky's up for him.
All right, Dave, your last pick at wide receiver for a breakout candidate.
Yeah, and I apologize if this one was too easy, but, Garrett Wilson was not a top 12 receiver. He did hit the 1,000-yard mark, but he did all of this with just a random quarter. You had Joe Flacco, you had Zach Wilson, you had Mike White, you also had another guy, I'm forgetting his name right now. This guy led his class in fantasy points per game, success versus man versus press, and PFF graded him as the best receiver in his class. And I think all of us would do the same. This guy runs like a gazelle. He's just always open. And as far as his in college, it was the same thing. And his route running premise and his instincts just really translated to the NFL. And you get someone like Aaron Rodgers to come over there, and Aaron Rodgers is. Yeah, he gives the rookies a hard time. I get it. Garrett Wilson's not a rookie. He does not play like a rookie. Aaron Rodgers is not a dummy. He's going to throw to the guy that's open, and Garrett Wilson's always open.
Yeah, that other quarterback who Garrett Wilson was catching passes from, in addition to Zach Wilson and Mike White, the elite Joe Flacco, Dave. Almost forgot about him. So, yeah, I'm excited about him. And, boy, it's really exciting to think about the possibility of Garrett Wilson getting Devontae Adams-type targeting from Aaron Rodgers. And, yes, Aaron Rodgers might not be the same quarterback he was 5-10 years ago, but he's still pretty good. I mean, as a Green Bay Packers fan myself, I still feel pretty confident about, Rodgers' ability to throw into tight windows, to, make throws that most other quarterbacks still can't make. The passing talents are still just off the charts. So, and not a lot here otherwise. I mean, it's Allen Lazard, Mecole Hardman, Corey Davis for the time being. So, yeah, it's possible path to 140-ish targets for Garrett Wilson this year. That's really exciting. All right, I've got one more wide receiver to give you guys, but by now I have to do one other bit of business here. By now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform that lets you build and manage your fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go and see what all the buzz in the Dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Think it sounds complicated? It's really not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online's front office format is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. So think you're among the fantasy elites? Well, this is the platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test out your GM skills for free in a mock auction. And if you like what you see, use the promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. All right, my last wide receiver, Dave, is Kadarius Toney. And, all All right, look, I know some people are going to be rolling their eyes if they've invested in Kadarius Toney the last 2 years because he has dealt with a litany of injuries, just one body part after another. Pretty much every entire part in his body has been hurt at one point or another, and he even got COVID twice in the same season. But yes, this dude does have blazing speed and incredible change of direction ability. He's just an extraordinary athlete, and it's visible to the naked eye when he is playing football. So now he is going to be entering the season healthy, hopefully. And, if he can play something close to a full season in an offense with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback and Andy Reid designing the plays, we could get something close to a 100-catch, 10-touchdown season out of him. And this guy has drawn targets at such a freakishly high rate. He has drawn a target on 17.3% of the snaps he's played in the NFL. 77 targets on 445 regular season snaps. Kind of a small sample size, but not that small. And just to put that 17.3% figure into perspective, Justin Jefferson, who led the NFL in targets last year, he drew a target on 17.1% of his snaps last year. So Toney is on the field. Toney is getting the ball. Here's hoping he can stay on the field more often this year. And again, in Dynasty, he's cheap because of all the injuries. I highly recommend that people try to get their hands on this guy. All right, Dave, the rookie breakout question again. It's an interesting rookie class. A lot of intriguing guys here, but no one assured of being in a situation where they're going to be able to pop right away as rookies. Who do you think could?
I would say the most likely would be Jordan Addison. You do have KJ Osborne there, but Adam Thielen out, Jordan Addison there. And I really like route runners and how they translate to the league. And you're looking at guys that can move around. He's played in the slot. He's played outside in different offenses at Pittsburgh and at USC. And he's got Kirk Cousins, who perennially is a 5,000-yard passer, usually 30 touchdowns. And so that production's got to go somewhere. Justin Jefferson is going to get a large portion, but he's not going to get all of it. And so you're going to have TJ Hawkinson, you're going to have Justin Jefferson, and then who's next? And so if Jordan Addison can be that next guy, then I think he could, possibly sneak into wide receiver 2 territory. As far as a wide receiver 1, I don't see it in this class, but I do think you're going to see solid wide receiver 2 production from Jordan Addison as soon as this year.
Yeah, I do think Addison is probably the best bet to pop right away in this rookie class. Some other interesting guys, maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba could do it. Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnson, the other first rounders. But yeah, I do think Addison is probably best situated to pop right away. All right, let's turn to tight end, Dave. Who do you got?
Well, Chig. And so everyone's talking about Chig right now. And if you look at, I know this is another small sample size kind of a guy, but if you do any research, you're looking at the advanced stats on PFF, you cannot ignore that this guy just keeps popping up. And so you look at targets per route run leaders last year. This is all pass catchers. Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Kyle Pitts, Chig Okonkwo. He is in that category. Yards per route run leaders, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Chig, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle. When you're putting yourself in these conversations, even though it's a small sample size, you have to take notice to this. And then you talked about the vacated targets and you talk about the possibility. If you're looking for a top 12 tight end, really if you check the box of 100 targets, you're in the club. It's almost a lock. You're going to be a top 12 tight end. Cole Kmet was not that good last year, but he just happened to be the number 2 target on a team that didn't even pass the ball that much. It was top 10 tight end. So Chig he could easily be a top 10 tight end this year and not even do too much. But you're looking at a guy that yards per route run, it was the highest out of the tight ends, period. And this guy's also a beast after the catch. So Chig could be a top 10 tight end this year.
He is a beast after the catch, indeed. Like, he is one of the rare tight ends who feels like really dangerous with the ball in his hands. I mean, obviously Travis Kelce, George Kittle, who's, one of the hardest guys to tackle in the league, a handful of other guys, maybe Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson, not too many others. Chig with the ball in his hands is exciting. And we saw that last year. I can't wait. And, as we were talking about with Treylon Burks, even if DeAndre Hopkins does end up in Tennessee, it's still not a super stacked group of pass catchers. I think Chig is still going to see plenty of targets. It's sort of in the same vein, a guy who was a rookie last year. I like Jelani Woods of the Colts. Just this sweeping wingspan for the 6'7" Jelani Woods, and can really move for a big man too. Like, he's fast. Factoring in his weight, his 4.61 time in the 40 at last year's NFL Scouting Combine gave him an 88th percentile speed score, according to our friends at playerprofiler.com. And as noted by my colleague Andrew Erickson, Woods was second among tight ends in yards per route run over the final 6 games of the 2022 season. His rookie usage was kind of sporadic, granted, but Woods did see at least 4 targets in 5 of his last 6 games, and he had an 8-catch, 98-yard performance against the Steelers in Week 12. I'm really excited about him as potentially the Colts tight end. We've seen them cycle through this goulash of tight ends the last few years with Mo Alley Cox and Kylan Granson and some of these other guys. I'd love to see Jelani just seize that job and run with it. All right, Dave, anyone else for you at the tight end position?
Yeah, I'll skip straight to the rookie question, Dalton Kincaid. And so I'm looking through Mike Clay's projections and talking about them on my show. And what stood out to me was the Bills' depth chart. And I remember how they lost in the playoffs, part of it with bad offensive line play. But they really struggled on the second half of the season with getting the ball to somebody else not named Stephon Diggs. And the defenses just really took Diggs away, and it really slowed down the Buffalo Bills. And they needed to address that. So they tried to trade up and get ahead of this wide receiver run in this draft class. They were unable to do so. The Tennessee Titans tried to trade into the first round so maybe they could get Will Levis. Bills were like, no, we have to get a weapon. And they got Dalton Kincaid. And so you look at this depth chart, you have Gabriel Davis as the wide receiver 2. Khalil Shakir is the wide receiver 3 currently. And so there is a world where Dalton Kincaid operates in that role as the slot and could end up being the second in targets on this team from Josh Allen. And this is a guy, when you talk about tight ends, you're looking for air yards. When you talk about elite tight ends, yes, 100 targets is going to get you in the top 12 club. But if you want to have elite production, you're looking for guys that can get 1,000 air yards. And if you look at any highlights from Dalton Kincaid, he's making acrobatic catches on the middle and second and third tier of defenses 30 yards down the field. This guy is a slot receiver in a tight end body.
Yeah, Kincaid is, by far the most exciting of a really exciting tight end class. I mean, we could see other guys. We could see Sam Laporta be involved right away for the Lions. We could see Michael Mayer carve out a big role for himself right away with the Raiders. The Packers have 2 rookies with Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. This is an exciting class. And boy, next year with Brock Bowers coming in, who's maybe even a better prospect than Kyle Pitts was, maybe there's some hope for this perennially disappointing position. And, we always talk ourselves into thinking tight end is a deep position, Dave, but then, guys flop. But there are some other young guys I'm kind of interested in as possible breakout candidates this year. Isaiah Likely. I mean, it would probably take Mark Andrews missing some time for Likely to really pop. But man, the little taste we got from him last year was pretty interesting. I'm a University of Wisconsin homer, but Jake Ferguson. I know the Cowboys drafted Luke Schoonmaker on day 2, but Schoonmaker I think he's going to be a blocking tight end. And, Ferguson is a pretty good pass catcher. We saw a little of that last year. Wouldn't surprise me if he became their primary pass catching tight end and had a surprising season. So, and that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Football Podcast. I want to thank Dave Heilman for being my co-pilot this week and playing the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to my Peter Graves. Sorry if some of you younger people don't get that reference. If not, go watch Airplane. Classic comedy movie. So, Dave, before we get out of here, can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, at Dynasty Dorks on all my social media. That's one word, Dynasty Dorks. I work for Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I just have an article that just dropped today. 1 dynasty value per AFC team. I'll be doing the NFC. I'll write that up tonight. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course, Dave. And I'm Pat Fitzmaurice. You can find me on Twitter at Fitz_FF. Thanks for checking out the show, my friends. Really appreciate you. Scott Bogman will be back in the driver's seat next week, but you should probably check out the show anyway. Just kidding, Bogman. Love you, buddy. Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next week.